Thank you for joining us for another episode of Jackman Radio. I'm very excited today. We are joined by the king of Portland comedy from Portland, Maine, Ian Stuart. How the hell you doing, man?
Hey, doing awesome. Thank you guys very much for having me on. I'm super psyched. That's how excited I am. Super psyched that I'm having a stroke right now to be on this show.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I've been wanting to do a podcast with you for a little while now, and unfortunately, with your schedule and our schedules, man, I mean, you're going every weekend with live shows, so and we usually do our in studio Friday night. So it's just been. So I proposed a live stream. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. No. I'm pumped, man. I'm glad that this worked out. Honestly, I would love to do an in studio with you guys at some point because I want to drink with you in a 6-foot radius. You know what I mean? Like I want to share booze with you guys, but this is a second best.
Yeah, that's what we figured. And it really is a different vibe. It's like you're saying, man, when you're in studio, you're having beers, things come to you that might not come to you through a screen. But, obviously the last 16, 18 months or so, this has kind of been the way we've been doing it. So yeah, we're somewhat used to it. So,
yeah. No, I love your, we were talking before we went live, but I am a huge fan. Beyond just, being on it, dude, I'm so pumped to be a part of this because I love what you guys are doing. And you guys hustle in so many different aspects of entertainment, comedy, information. It's awesome. It's beautiful to see. So again, thank you very much for having me on, for real.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Absolutely. And yeah, like we were saying, man, you're hustling too. I mean, you've got, I think this is, maybe it's a different name now, but this might be the second or third annual New England's Funniest Comedian competition coming up. What's going on? What's going on with that?
So I started doing a comedy competition back when the Comedy Connection back on Wharf Street moved to Market Street. I became their Friday night guy there, and I decided to do a comedy competition kind of akin to what they were doing with Portland's Funniest Professional, which is like the old comedy competition from Maine, from the old Comedy Connection. And so I kind of took that over, did Maine's Funniest, moved it to One Longfellow Square for, I want to say 1 or 2 years, maybe 2 years, moved it to Empire for a few years, moved it to House of Music last year, 2 years ago rather, and now we're doing it in Aura. So it's progressively gotten bigger and better every year. And this year this year we had 100 people sign up within 23 hours of kind of announcing what was going on. So it popped off immediately.
Wow, that's crazy. Aura's an awesome venue too, man. Congratulations on the growth of that, dude. That's awesome.
Dude, I absolutely love Aura. I've been able to perform there a few times. I opened up for Ari Shaffir there a few times, which, he was canceled and he's coming back. I opened up for Justin McKinney, who is a local guy that everyone loves. And then I actually opened up for Todd Rundgren, the 1970s progressive rock guy.
Yeah.
I did a few tour dates with him, and one of them was at Aura.
No shit, Todd Rundgren. Hey,
yeah.
It's me again. Yeah. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. One of my buddies met Todd Rundgren at an in-store autograph signing back in the 80s. And he had heard Rundgren give an interview on the radio saying that he was very stressed out and just, overworked in the music industry. So my friend just innocently bought him like a spa package to go get a massage and go to a spa. And he tried to approach him and say, hey, I heard you on the radio that you were under duress and exhausted. So I got this for you. And he's like, security, get this guy out of here. He's just a true fan. But that's wild, man.
It's wild how he was the one entertainer that I couldn't get a photo with. Like I did multiple dates with him because apparently he was doing this thing called like a circus tour or something like that, where he wanted like a comedian to open up for his musical act, and he was doing 2 sets of the musical act. So I just happened to be the guy that they picked, and we did like Blue Ocean Music Hall and Aura, so big venues. And because we did 2 nights, I'm thinking like, I'll get a photo on the second night, and we're backstage, and I was like, hey man, can I get a photo? And he didn't say anything. His manager stepped in and was like, oh, I'm sorry, Todd can't do a photo right now. I was like, I'm looking at him like right here in the room. Well, I will say his keyboard player was the keyboard player from the Cars, the band The Cars. I fucking love the Cars.
They're one of my favorite bands, yeah.
And I can't remember his name, but he watched my set both nights, and he watched it and liked it, and he was very complimentary when I got off stage. Like, that was kind of a thrill to hang out with the dude from the Cars.
Oh, that's Greg. No, David Robinson's the drummer. The keyboardist is Greg Hawkes.
That sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
Hawks.
Yeah. That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did a whole episode on the Cars actually about their bass player Benjamin Orr, who sadly passed away from cancer in 2000. But there was a book written about him by a New England guy, and I had him on the podcast about a couple months ago. So that's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, there's some talented dudes, man. The car, all the guys in the Cars are all talented in their own respects, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's funny? I think apparently Todd kind of like rolls with like a killer's row of players. So everyone that was in the band was like part of like, I think the drummer was in Journey, and the guitar player was some other big, like it was a bunch of like, household, 1980s guitar guy names, if you will. So everyone around me was super fucking pumped, but I didn't really I was just getting stoned, and I think that's why Todd didn't want me to get a photo with him, because I was pronouncing his name wrong at all times. So this guy's on the man. Fuck this guy.
That's what's great about it, though.
Well, I'll be the first to admit, Ian, I'm a whore for photographs with like famous people and well-known people. It's just you never see. I like to use it. Someone was commenting, they're like, "Jesus, Eric, you have a photo with everyone who's like ever had a political scandal." So like when some of my pictures go, like I got pictures of Rudy Giuliani that I took at the Peterborough Diner here in like summer of '07, and fucking, Rudy, he ain't been doing so well lately, but so I'll then take those pictures, and when that person blows up or they do some shit, I'll just post them and put some kind of snarky caption with it. So
yeah, when they can't find photos of them with Epstein, they're going to find photos with them and you.
That's right. Hey, that's one guy, Ian, I don't have fucking pictures with. I have nothing to do with Epstein, Ian. I don't know him. I never met him, okay? He could walk in here right now with a noose around his neck, and I wouldn't recognize him, okay? But, yeah, I mean, it's really, it goes full circle. So, Ian, you graduated Pierce in 2009 with me, right? 2009?
2008.
Oh, 8. Okay, so you're a year ahead of me. So I was there 2005 to 2009.
Was it still Franklin Pierce College back then, or when did it become university? 07 or 06?
It became college when I was a junior, or it became university when I was a junior, I want to say. So I was one of the first to graduate under university.
Yeah, like summer of 2007, I got to believe, is when it hit the university rebrand of the label. Who knows what that means? But right, so you were there 2004 to 2008. So how did you come to attend Franklin Pierce? So you're originally from Maine, obviously, and Mike and I are locals. We're townies. We grew up in Rindge. We landed in Rindge in 1997 in 4th grade from Massachusetts. So we stayed. Mike went to Keene State, and I went to Franklin Pierce. So how did you end up leaving Maine and going to Pierce?
Well, I had a few. So I thought I was going to be a musician when I was in high school. My dad is a twice Grammy-nominated musical engineer, right? So his whole life is like hanging out in studios behind the boards, and I learned how to do like all that audio editing and all of that production. And so initially I was going to go to Berkeley, and I got accepted into Berkeley. But my dad, was like, "Listen, you can do the music shit. You already have the talent. You can do the production. What you really need is a business degree." And I just was not really I got into Berkeley because of all the extracurricular shit I was doing and bands I was in and jazz band, like all the stuff that I was doing. So it was hard for me to get into like a business school being like a C+, B- student. And that's where Franklin Pierce came into play. They were like, "Hey, you're a B- average guy. Here's $10,000 a year for a scholarship.
Come on in."
Like, what? And so that's how kind of and also like I visited. It was the only college when I was in high school that I visited and had an overnight with. And I overnighted with this kid who turned out to be like a dude I saw all through college, but I wasn't homies with. But I had like a blast. I had like a really good time just doing like that one overnight. And it was in like was Cheshire, the dorms, where it was like, lights out at 9. It was like almost like a jail type living situation.
So, sounds like it. I was a commuter all 4 years. I mean, I hung out on campus quite a bit and did some overnights there, obviously, but that sounds like a Cheshire thing.
Or was that Granite?
I don't know. I can't remember.
It was because it was sophomore housing that I stayed in when I went for the overnight. But anyways, I was impressed, man. And I mean, I'll say this, like obviously a ton of fucking debt, but all of my best friends still to this day, all the people that I consider like dudes that should be speaking at my wake if I die anytime soon, are all from that college. The relationships that I made in Franklin Pierce, are nothing like my high school relationships pale in comparison to what I made at that place. So I didn't learn a lot at Franklin Pierce, but I made like a ton of very strong relationships and connections with people. And so I went there for 4 years, graduated in 4 years, and partied pretty hard. But it was great. And so were you guys involved in a bluegrass band?
No, I know what you're talking about. Weren't they called the Mountain Boys? Something Mountain Boys.
I feel like that's where I maybe first met you guys.
Yeah, we probably met you at one of their shows outside. I think they played at Lakeview quite a bit, and we were down there a lot. But I mean, I remember you through Jimmy Devine. Jimmy was really the SSDP and all those guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the other thing too is like I hung out with James Averett, who was like this crazy party monster, and so we had this party apartment called D2, R2D2 we called it, and we had a party almost every single night. So that's kind of like my junior year. My social life became insane, and also my junior year was the year I became single, right? So like I was like a man out on campus having a crazy wild time. So. That's where I was going to but I feel like I remember seeing you guys at a Mountain Boys show, and it was in the old ski lodge. Remember the tiny little ski lodge next to the glass blowing studio?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I was with Mike Forrest, and I met you guys there. And I could be wrong, but I feel like that's where we met. That's what I remember.
Was he a larger fellow, Mike Forrest, like us, or?
No, like a tall, skinny bean post of a guy. Hung out a lot with Heather and who was the other, like Heather and something. They were hippies that were in Sawmill.
Yeah, we did hang out in Sawmill a little bit. Eric, actually, you lived there one summer.
Yeah, I lived there the summer of 2008. I worked for the conference center at Franklin Pierce, so I didn't live there during the year, but 2 summers I worked full time at Pierce, and they give you the free comped housing if you work full time. Awesome. So one year I worked for financial services, and then 1 summer I worked for the conference center, and that was good. So I was a commuter during the year, and then those 2 summers gave me the nice mix of having a place on campus, and then when I didn't want to deal with campus, I could just come right home.
Yeah. I hated being at my house. So I would spend Easter at fucking Franklin Pierce. It's funny, like I read a bunch of Harry Potter books like very high in high school. And I always equated like Harry Potter's hanging out at Hogwarts to like Franklin Pierce. I don't know why, but it was like my fucking Hogwarts. You know what I mean? Where I was like, I'm escaping everything. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere. No one knows where I am. That's one of the reasons I love that school. It's kind of like, it was like a college that fucking like, it's like a college you go to if you wanted to write letter bombs to the government. You know what I mean?
It was a true liberal arts experience.
Yeah.
Like Eric was saying, man, I went to Keene State as a commuter, but I really, like you said, man, I made my friends at Franklin Pierce. I partied at Franklin Pierce, and that's really where I experienced college. Friends for life, man. We got friends that we met at Franklin Pierce that are going to be friends for life to this day that we stay in touch with and see all the time. So it's definitely a special place. And I think that era was a special time too, man. That was one of the last eras before technology took over every aspect of our lives and people could be canceled for, looking at somebody wrong or saying the wrong thing or, I think it's a totally different environment and atmosphere now. But yeah, there's probably still a lot of the same stuff under the surface. But you know what I'm saying?
No, I feel like I kind of grew up in that. When you look at like a fucking like a 1980s teenage adventure movie, I feel like Franklin Pierce was kind of like that spot, right? It was just like doing some weird, crazy shit. No one really cared. Everyone's a little high. Everyone's a little drunk. Everyone's hooking up. Like I don't know. It was like I think you're right. Like technology hasn't ruined it, I'm sure. But I'm very glad I got to go and experience it. Kind of like the traditional, like, I got to yell at you if I want to get in contact with you type of shit.
Yeah, it reminded me of that movie Rules of Attraction because that's based on a school in Vermont. So very, very similar vibe for sure.
Absolutely.
Very similar.
Yeah, I talked to one of my old professors recently, and he said it is a lot different, since we left there in 2008 and 2009, and that you do have to be more careful about what you say and what you explore with students and like, students being sensitive to stuff. And So I don't know, man. It seems freedom of speech and freedom of expression and thought and having different points of view is kind of. I didn't feel like we had safe spaces when we were there. You know what I mean? I felt like everyone had different points of view, and I was friendly with people of all political persuasions because obviously I was very involved with politics and had my show there at the Fitzwater Center with Justin Martell, and we were political rabble rousers. So even with people that we didn't agree with or we'd argue and debate with, you know, at the end of the day, man, you could find us hours later down at Lakeview or the Towers fucking drinking and partying together and laughing about our debate, but we were still friends and we still respected and cared about each other even if we disagreed on shit.
Dude, that's exactly like, so you guys must know Jordan Handy, right?
Oh yeah, Jordan's great.
So
he's a fucking legend.
Literally one of my best friends all through college. Still one of my best friends. You know what I mean? Like I just saw him over the summer during the pandemic, and when we hung out, there's still like this immediate. You know, we're best friends as soon as we see each other. There's that immediate connection. And Jordan, you know, I grew up very liberal. When I went to that college, very, 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 very liberal. He was very conservative, you know, and he loved being the conservative guy. Like he loved poking the bear too.
He thrived on that.
Yeah. Oh, he loved it. He loved that shit. But with that said, that's what drew me to him, and also a lot of those people in Franklin Pierce, where it really wasn't about the ideology, because it was people were shifting their paradigms constantly. It was more about the energy. It was a pure, like, you might not agree, but at least that person's coming from a wholesome place. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about going to Franklin Pierce is I feel like everyone was kind of mostly on the same level, regardless of your point of view. And I loved that about that school.
Yeah, fun Jordan Handy story. Maybe he probably won't mind if I tell this, but I had a lot of classes with Jordan, and I got the biggest kick out of him, man. I didn't know the word then, but he's what you would call based today. Like he was like proto based back then, so he knew he was around.
Funny as hell too, man.
Isn't he a lawyer now, Ian?
Oh yeah. Dude, I was the only one out of the homie group that didn't become a lawyer. Him, Zach Wade, they all became lawyers, and I'm a fucking comedian. Yeah,
Zach's brilliant too. I had classes with him and enjoyed him too. But yeah, Jordan. So one class, we had a super liberal kid, and he was like going off about something, and then him and Jordan got into a back and forth because tensions had been building for weeks. You know, they always had sparred. It was known that they were like, you know, always going to butt heads. So eventually, Jordan's like, "Oh yeah, you know what? Just go save the whales." And that was like the last straw. And this kid fucking took his big book. And I think it was Professor Mara, who's not there anymore, but I'm pretty sure it was one of his classes, and he's like, don't throw that book. And the dude just fucking throws the book at Jordan. I don't think it hit him. We'll have to, hit up Jordan, ask him to corroborate.
There were multiple times where I'd be hanging out with Jordan. We had this thing called conference calls, right? And it was over AIM. I think it was over AIM. I think we're still doing AIM at the time. So we all have the AIM up, and we'd get all these messages like conference call, and we'd go to the Lakeview bathrooms, like the downstairs, where like the efficiency, I think that's called. That's where him and Zach lived. We'd go in the back, and we'd smoke out. And there were multiple times where we'd go to the conference call, and he'd be like, "Dude, someone keyed my car again. I think it's because of that George Bush sticker on the back of my truck." He had so many like funny ass like bumper stickers on his truck just to troll the other student at Franklin Pierce. It was like memeing, you know what I mean? Like it was so high level shit.
I feel like Jordan Handy was our Tucker Carlson, you know?
Yeah. Oh, dude, easily.
Yeah, you love him. There's just such a likability about him. You might not agree on like everything, but you're like, I fucking love this guy.
Oh, dude, no, absolutely. And you know what's funny is he's a dude that, you know, he'll say something and he won't agree. But sometimes, I mean, I'll say this. I don't think anytime he says shit that is shocking, but he doesn't say shit for a shocking value. Like he knows what he's talking about. So not only will he say some shit, but he's got a bunch of information and facts and his own perception to go behind that. There was a ton of times where we'd be smoking and he'd say something off the wall and I'd press him on it. And by the end of the conversation, I was on his fucking side, you know?
He brought you over. So while we're talking about our old Pierce buddies, this is from Jeff Cornell. He writes HP, which is our code for Hey Poopsie. That's his nickname. Right. So if you're watching Poopsie, it's Pierce Pride. It's Ravens all the time.
Yeah.
Ravens forever. And we've since graduating college have collaborated with Jeff on a lot of things. He's filmed all of our interviews we do at the brewery at Post and Beam Brewing here in Peterborough, the Politics and Pints series. So a Pierce alum who really took his craft and brought it to another level. So he does videos. He's a videographer. He's a film editor. Real talented dude. So we love you. We love you, Poopsie. But yeah, it's I just look back fondly, Ian, on college, man. I fucking loved it. And like you said, I've made lifelong friends. I mean, this upcoming weekend, Mike and I are driving to Asbury Park, New Jersey for a birthday party for another Pierce alum, Brad Thomas. You remember him, Bradford?
Okay, yeah. So
Yep.
I don't remember what I said to him, but I do remember giving him shit. I'm not sure what I said. But if you're like, oh, Ian Stuart, he might have like an I fucking hate that guy story. Not sure what I did, but I'm pretty sure I said something to Brad.
We'll have to.
I did give a ton of freshmen one year nicknames. Like I went through and just started like a fucking nickname fairy, just started dotting them on the head with, and you are an inappropriate name, and you are an inappropriate name. I just did everything from fucking like Nordic Thunder to there's one I can't say right now. It's off the top of my head that I would be canceled for immediately. And that was a dude's nickname for years. For years. For years we used this nickname. And if people found out, I'd be fucking canceled immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know. Sorry, I keep gushing about fucking Franklin Pierce. It's just I fucking love it. I love that spot, man.
They should sponsor us, and they should sponsor Welcome to Maine for the fucking the shouts we're giving them right now, the big shouts. And Poopsie says he still uses his Ravens golf bag. So that's yeah. Oh fuck! But yeah, I will always look back fondly, and the Marlin Fitzwater Center for Communication gave us all a lot of opportunities. They let underclassmen touch the equipment, and they'll give you a fucking TV show so you can get your propaganda going like right out the gate. So that's where Justin Martell and I had we did Chowder together, and then we did Dynamic Duo, and it would be wild, man, hanging out in the dorms, and then it would come on, and I would just feel I'd feel really important in those moments.
Fuck yeah.
So another project, Ian, that you're working on, man, that we love is Welcome to Maine. I think you've done probably almost 30 episodes in a pretty quick span, and those are freaking hilarious, man. It's like you got you and who plays Troy? What's his name? James
DeBurge, yeah.
Hilarious, and he's a fellow Mainer. So you basically the gist of that, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's these two guys who are from Maine who kind of go through all the stereotypes and all the typical things you would think. But I mean, some of the places you guys have filmed, and how often are you just thinking, we coming up with ideas to go to new locations or something you haven't?
Well, I got a list. I have a list of shit I got to do. And that's the thing. It's like I would love to. If I feel like if I put it out once a week, it would. Like we've gotten almost 7,000 followers in I want to say 8 or 9 months. Like we just started this last September. Like we're brand new, and we are we're going like gangbusters for a brand new show. I feel like we would honestly double that number if I was doubling out output. Right now we're at like 2 videos a month. But here's the thing. So I don't know if you guys know this. I write, I direct, I edit, and I do all the promotion for that show. So it's like just to write that script. It's a full scripted series. To write the script, it usually takes me 3 or 4 days of kind of like knocking out jokes, and then we shoot it. It takes like 2 hours to shoot it. Then it's like a day to edit it, and then to promote it's like another week. So it's just like almost a 2-week process to do one episode anyway. So I feel like I don't know. I would love to put out more. I would love to put out more episodes. In all honesty, I guess just what I'm trying to say. I think we've done okay so far, but I would love to just knock it the fuck out like weekly.
Well, if you continue to grow, your podcast, or if you get a crew that can, if it's not just all on you, I'm sure you could. I mean, but you're also not sacrificing any quality. I mean, you're making sure the quality's there, which I think is important. I don't
know if I'd say quality. I would say like my personal style. Not to say, I mean? I feel like I'm fair, even like because all of the things that I like are kind of white trash, and I feel like I even edit and film that thing kind of white trash. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely, you know what I mean? Like you can tell like a dude that spent some time in a trailer filmed that. You know what I mean? Like
he's definitely the Lewiston Auburn Kid Rock, Mike. There's no denying that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And because you're the writer, did you intentionally develop the character of Mark to not have that many lines, to just have James do it, or did you just feel like, because it really does remind me of an old guy you meet from Maine who you're just talking to him and he just says one word responses. That you guys freaking nailed that.
Well, you know what's funny is I initially wasn't even going to be acting in it. I really just wanted to kind of like Kevin Smith the shit, where I wanted to write it and direct it, because I did the Stranger series for a while, and the Stranger series was something that I wrote, and I was in front of the camera, and I was like the main person. I didn't want to be the main person, so I wanted to write a character, which was Troy initially, and basically have like this guy, I wanted basically like a real Mainer to go, because like when you're in Maine, you see the tourist videos, like come to Maine, the beautiful oasis that is Bar Harbor, Maine. You know what I mean? And it's obviously like a sound bite from someone from California. It's not a Mainer. And what I wanted was like, I wanted like, come to freaking Bahama, dude. It's fucking way too cool. You know, like I wanted the actual Maine shit behind it. And so that's how I wrote it initially. And then I will say that the duo idea, like that's classic comedy. I mean, it's from Penn and Teller to fucking, you know, to the guy who says Meep on the Muppets to fucking, you know, Jay and Silent Bob to like whoever. There's always that dynamic of the overt, you know, like blah, 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 blah guy, and just like the background, like, yep, whatever he says, or doesn't even say anything, like the non-vocal guy, I feel like makes the other dude stand out even more. And so I started writing that dynamic based on other comedic shows and comedic partners that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? Like, and you fucking Rocket Raccoon and Groot. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many of those. Crazy dude plus the tall, stoic, doesn't say shit guy. And when I first wrote it, it was totally just a background character. It's funny because I've got Graves' disease. My eyes do crazy shit. And the more that we were filming it, like the longer the scripts were, the longer it took to film Welcome to Maine. So the more you'd actually see my eyes going up and down. The more I included that, the more people were like, oh, I like the tall guy, Mark. So not to say that I'm more prominent, but I made the script very focused around the Mark character, even though the Mark character doesn't speak.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We got Mark here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So James, he what was his background? Did he play hockey, Mike? Did he play hockey, Ian, before?
Yeah,
Was he
playing?
Yeah, he played hockey. I know he played hockey in college. I want to say he played hockey for like maybe some super low level professional team at one point. But yeah, so he played hockey. I know him through stand-up comedy because he's a stand-up comedian. But he was one of the only dudes around me that could do voices. Like, one thing he doesn't do on stage, which he should be doing on stage, is he is fucking amazing at different voices. Like a bunch of like famous voices. He can do local dudes. Like he can pick up a voice and just do someone's voice. And he always had a great Maine accent. And we just vibe. We smoke weed together. We're best friends. So it was like one of those things where I kind of gave him like my RZA talk, where I was like, yo, man, if you let me just take the helm of this project and you just are one of the, if you just act the shit out of it for me and let me kind of like drive it, I promise we'll find a little bit of success. And luckily that lie worked, you know, so I have full control of it, so that's good.
Hey, you guys are getting all kinds of coverage up there and really, you know, like local affiliates and big media stations and papers up there always seem to, you know, review it or write an article for it. So it's, yeah, in a short time, man, it's people have really taken to it, you know, because it is, I think it is authentic, man. There's a lot in those characters that even if you're not from Maine, you can see in someone from your own family, even in New Hampshire. But
oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Everything's based. That shit's not based on what I assume Maine is. That shit's based on like the dudes working next to my house. That's based on the guy that I got to deal with at Shaw. That's based on my cousins and my uncles, and you know what I mean. Like that's based in real life. And it's funny. Apparently, some dude freaked the fuck out on James a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, because he found out James doesn't actually. That, you know, the accent that James does on our show is not his real accent. And James had to be like, dude, fucking acting like Tom Hanks doesn't go around walking around talking like fucking Forrest Gump all day. You know what I mean? Like it's an acting thing, you know. But it's not like it's rooted in real shit. That, you know what I mean? It's not like our, you know, we're playing on. We are playing on stereotypes, but we're playing on stereotypes that we fucking live through on a daily basis, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, that's why I think that show that just came out on HBO, Mayor of Easttown, is so popular, because Kate Winslet just embedded herself in Delco County, Pennsylvania, and just just crushed it, got the accent down, and that's people I think really when they see that they recognize it, and that's probably why things like that become popular and there's an audience for it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the it's funny, like I've built small audiences in other parts of my entertainment career, but this is the first time where we really do have total fucking strangers, people we've never met in our life, hit us up that like love us, like hit us up with like almost creepy fucking messages. They're like, I'm obsessed, blah 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 blah, and I've never experienced. I've walked through the grocery store a few times, and people have recognized me for opening up for another comedian, and they'll be like, "Hey man, I saw you open up for Dave Attell. You were great," right? Like that kind of shit. I'll get that sometimes. This character, the Mark character, I was out back of my house smoking a joint, and there was a dude working on the house next to me, and this dude goes, "Hey man, are you Mark from Welcome to Maine?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm Mark from Welcome to Maine." Right? I'm recognized in my own backyard, and the way that this dude acted though was not to stroke my own ego, but I had never seen anyone react to me that way. Like this dude thought he was like, "Holy shit, like you're fucking Mark from Welcome to Maine." Like no one's ever done that about my stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? Like no one's given a fuck about like the dick jokes I've got, but people really seem to, latch on to Mark, the character. And it's very interesting to see that shift, that transition.
Yeah, definitely. And I can, recognize that because I did comedy before my Trump thing kind of took off, and I never got recognized. No one ever saw it or said anything about it. And then the Trump thing took off, and I was featured on WMUR on New Hampshire Chronicle. And I was getting on a plane to come back to New Hampshire to fly to Manchester, and a guy like stopped me and did a double take. He's like, "Are you that guy that dresses like Donald Trump and goes to the rallies? I'm pretty sure I just saw you on the news." I was like, guilty. So that was pretty cool. So I've been recognized like a few times for that, but just around New Hampshire and at places. So it definitely makes you feel good. It feels good to be seen.
Yeah. No, it's sweet. Like it makes me feel good about what I'm doing with my art. You know what I mean? If a total stranger's like, "Hey, I saw your art and I like it," like not to say that when my friends say nice shit to me, it doesn't affect me in a positive way too. But like when someone that doesn't owe me a goddamn thing, doesn't know me from anywhere but that art, and they approach me, like there's very few things that are as thrilling as that, honestly. And again, that might be because I'm an egomaniac, but I fucking dig it. I love it.
Well, there's definitely ego involved in being an entertainer and what we do, because you're doing something where you want eyes on you. You want to attract attention, and you want people to pay attention to what you're doing. So I did a corporate gig this morning down in Mystic, Connecticut at the Marriott, the Mystic Marriott for Anderson Window. Their sales team had their annual sales team for Southern New England, and they hired me to come down and roast like the VP and the managers and celebrate the sales team that just crushed it in the last quarter. So the guy who hired me, he's like, "Dude, I've been watching your videos online, man. You're fucking hilarious. You got Trump down so well, and we really would love you to come to our event." So I rolled up there this morning. Got up at like 6 this morning. I was on the road by 7 down to Connecticut. It took about 2.5 hours to get there. And it was a ballroom at the Marriott with like over 100 people in there. And I was a surprise to most of them. So those are always fun gigs. And I walked right in, hi Jackman, and the VP was talking, and I took the podium over.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's events like that.
Where else other than comedy do you get to behave like that and get paid to do it sometimes,
Well, that's the thing, man. It's like that's what I love about comedy. Like I was always a loudmouth dude who overtalked and overshared and was like weird and said weird. Like obviously, like in college, I've nicknamed so many people that I've got a fucking reputation apparently. You know what I mean? Like I was always that dude. And I remember talking with a friend of mine that I was friends with in high school, and we were drinking, a few years ago. And he's like, "It's so funny that you found comedy." He's like, "Because I think everyone thought that you were going to be a comedian." And I was like, "Because I was funny?" And he was like, "No, because you talk shit constantly." I was like, "All right, fair enough." It was either comedian or work in construction. And honestly, if it wasn't comedy, I'd be working in construction. So, hey,
That's true. And this weekend, you're going to be hosting an event called Barnstock. Is that like a mixture of music and comedy, or just you're like the MC and it's mostly music? Or
it's music. So I've hosted Barnstock. This is my 3rd year hosting Barnstock. I love stand-up comedy. But some of my favorite gigs in the world are hosting gigs, like being between bands, being like, and this is like, you can look at the footage from 2 years ago, and it's like thousands of people. It's a big, big, big event, and just my energy, who I am, I get to be like a rock star for a night. You know what I mean? Like I get to go on stage and strut around and, you know, when I say smoke, you say weed, smoke. And there's 4,000 people like weed, you know, like you can't do that in fucking stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of feel like a rock star in stand-up comedy, but not like that. Not like, you know, it's a whole different energy. And, man, I fucking love it. I'm so pumped. It's funny. I was just talking with this, you know, management. There's someone who's interested in managing me. And, you know, I was like, you know, there are gigs out there. And like, so you were talking about corporate shit like that. Like that's starting to, you know, happen for me right now too. I'm doing some corporate gigs and shit like that. But I was also like, you know, I still want to do the shit like Barnstock where I get just a couple $100 and paid in beer. You know what I mean? Like some of those shows where the experience is so much more valuable than any monetary gain. And, you know, Barnstock is definitely that. Like I would do that shit for free. Luckily it's not for free. I get paid, but like I would do that shit for free for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely comedy or music experiences, and I'm still playing music. I haven't given up on the rock star dream. I'm a drummer too, and I love doing gigs, and some of them are very small, some of them are for thousands of people, but sometimes there are magical ones where you might not be getting paid that much, but you can play some original music and people connect to it, or you know, just the electricity coming from the crowd. It is different than doing comedy for people. Those are definitely there's a lot of similarities, but there are definitely a lot of differences too. So I hear what you're saying on that.
Yeah, no, dude. You know, it's funny. I feel like I get along more with musicians than I do with comedians for the most part. Maybe that's like on a local level, but I feel like just like I feel like it's
not as competitive.
Right. I mean, not only competitive, but I feel like it's almost like the way that I treat comedy is like I like you know, I like having a couple beers and smoking a joint, and like relaxing, having a good time. I feel like there's a lot of people that take comedy very, very seriously. They're like, they're people that I don't think will ever have an actual career in comedy, but they take it seriously in a way where like, you know, you can't talk to them before a show and they got to go over their notes, and like it's very a serious thing. I feel like in bands, it's usually like people that like know that like, hey, I'm just fucking around. Like I'm here to have a good fucking time. And I feel like that's why I get along with a lot more musicians, because they're there to have a fucking good fucking time, not really to prove anything. You know what I mean? And not to say that I have, you know, not to say that I don't want to prove anything, but for the most part, I got the least amount to prove out of most of the comedians, because I just don't really give a fuck. You know what I mean? And I think that's why I find a lot of brotherhood in musicians.
Oh, absolutely, man. I get so much joy from jamming with other people. Obviously, I have my band, and you know, I'm the type of drummer, I don't ever play by myself. I don't practice on my own because I need to have other, you know, live instruments there to play. So, you know, some drummers are different and they do it on their own with headphones or whatever. But plus, I live in an apartment, so that's not really. I can't have my drum set up here. Yeah. But
like, you know, comedy is such a solitary thing. With you, like playing drum, like it's a party no matter, even if you're not drinking or smoking. Playing bass and drums at the same time, it's kind of a fucking party. You know what I mean? Like it's a different feel. Writing jokes alone at your house, it's not as fun. I can promise that. You know,
it's a little bit more tortured artist type shit, isn't it? You know, it's you know, try to go to the well to force yourself to do something. Honestly, I feel like some of the best comedic stuff Eric and I have come up with has just been when I'm not trying to come up with something. I might be having a conversation with a friend or just doing something else, and something comes to mind and I write it down, and then we expand on that thread, and then it becomes a bit, or it becomes, you know, something that we do in a podcast or something. Absolutely.
Yeah, good comedy comes from the fucking ether. You know what I mean? It comes from nowhere. That's why all the best jokes come when you're driving a car or showering, because if you're thinking with whatever side of your brain, then it just allows in the crazy shit to come in, and you're like, oh fuck. Hot dogs do taste like dicks. Damn. You know, like,
red snap dogs. Oh, yeah.
And also, you know, I'm sure you have many muses, Ian, and Mike and I do, of course. We had a friend up probably over a month ago, and he came and hung out with us. And, you know, he's not a Biden fan. And everyone's always like, okay, Eric, well, Trump's out of there, so you got to kind of follow that up. Maybe you can develop a Joe Biden impression or come up with Biden. And it was actually Mike who really really brought the Biden heat. So he premiered it for us like over a month ago. We were all out at the whiskey bar here in town, and he had 3 of our friends crying, laughing. I mean, Mike, it was some of your best, Mike.
That was the workshop. That's oftentimes the workshop if something's going to be good for people, and it usually involves alcohol. Yes, that is true. I was definitely drinking.
You were, but you were just flinging hot fire, dude, as Biden, and it was very very timely and topical, and it was just nice to see, because it's not just all Trump.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, since we do a lot of political stuff, but you got to try and do who's in power, and we got a show coming up on July 9th where we're doing a live podcast in Keene, and there will definitely be quite a bit of Biden. So looking forward to
getting a sample of a Biden voice snippet.
Yeah, Mr. President, we're here with Ian Stuart. He's a comedian from Maine. Do you want to ask him anything or give him any advice?
Now, look, Ian, I'm serious. This is about the heart and soul of America. All right? No, I know you're laughing, but I'm serious. And my mother used to say, God rest her soul, the best goddamn fucking purple lobsters came out of Yarmouth. I used to go up to the Bushes compound with little black kids sitting on my legs with the cockroaches in the hair. And you're sure. Come on, man. Yeah, so it's a work in progress,
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on.
You wanna come? Ian, you wanna come shower with Daddy? You wanna come to the Senate bath with Lindsey Graham? We're gonna get John McCain's corpse. We're gonna come shower with Daddy, Hunter. You wanna shower with Daddy? Mr. President, what's the name of Hunter's book?
It's his memoir. He's a very smart man. It's called Barack, Crack, and Iraq. And it's coming out. We're doing a live reading with Corn Pop. Look forward to here. So, yeah, I mean, he's not as bombastic as Trump, but there are nuances and there are certain things that he said, and we just kind of take that and twist it, but also sprinkle in real life quotes,
Yeah, absolutely. No, dude, I'm so I wish I could do fucking impressions. It's not like I cannot draw, I can't fucking paint, and I can't do goddamn impressions. And I love impressions. I went to see Frank Caliendo a few times live, and I fucking love his stand-up comedy. I don't know. There's something about being able to do someone's voice and just making that voice say whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? There's so much power in that. I love that.
There's immense power, man. I mean, I found myself roasting Mayor Marty Walsh and Governor Charlie Baker for a St. Patrick's Day dinner a couple years ago. And before that, I drank a good amount of whiskey. I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? I'm going to be up here on stage dressed up like Donald Trump with these people. And I just went out there and I looked at Marty Walsh. I said, we got Mayor Marty McFly here. What a loser. Little Marty. We got little Marty over there. The sitting mayor of Boston. He could have his union thugs come fucking break my legs, And then, Charlie Baker was the CEO of Harvard Pilgrim Health. And I said, Charlie, before you were governor, you ran Harvard Pilgrim Health into the ground. It was a disaster, quite frankly. But it was it's fun when you can channel somebody and do their impression. And I think for the best impressions, Daryl Hammond to me is the gold standard. And an amazing day for me was when he followed me on Twitter, and he just awesome. I just said, hey man, I'm honored. You're one of my heroes. I grew up watching you on Saturday Night Live, and you always inspired me to do impressions in school. I mean, Mike and I, we started with our family members, and then we would do our teachers, and then we would do the talent shows and get our teachers' permission and impersonate them in front of the whole school at the talent shows. So that's kind of where we started doing it, Mike, right?
Yeah. It just started just on a small level like that, and it's it can be anybody. You can find inspiration. You hear something. It's weird. It's like a mimic, man. It's like a parrot or just a mimic, and then you kind of hone it, and then one day you just debut it and you just go from there. So
are there any impressions that you guys do that you just do for yourselves that you haven't done as far as on stage or for comedy?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we still do family members and friends that are obviously it's a niche. It's a niche impression that only us and a small group of friends would
do you please treat us on Matt Damon for Ian? This is our uncle.
This is our uncle, yeah, and he's a twin too.
And he's from Canada originally.
I regard him as the funniest person I've ever met, and he happens to be my uncle. He's like, oh yeah, Matt Damon. What happened to Matt Damon? He used to be so handsome, but now he's just an ugly troll. I I got to go to some sticky, disgusting movie theater covered in jizz and sit there for 2 hours and pretend that Matt Damon's up on Mars. I can't do it anymore. That's just one of his like throwaway lines that he had in the conversation. So he's definitely a big influence on us without even really trying or knowing about it. But
that's awesome.
We've never been able to get him to perform. You know, it's just one of those things where I don't know that he'd like to perform for a crowd. But you got a lot of things going on with live shows, and you're doing shows, I think, in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, maybe some in Massachusetts. What's it been like getting back out there regularly performing comedy, you know, since it looks like things are starting to open up a little bit?
So I'll be honest, I feel like I can talk about it on this podcast. I was not doing the same amount of gigs as I was pre-pandemic, but I was still doing comedy throughout the fucking pandemic. And I say that as someone with like, I have an autoimmune disease, right? Like if I got the shit, like I'd be fucked. I took everything with every precaution possible, but I feel like the reason I'm in the position right now is because I continued working throughout this last year through the pandemic. And so I think like, I don't think anything's changing for me right now. It's just like I'm now getting more opportunities. I guess it's like the short version of what I was trying to say is I've been working through the entire fucking time. I think there's a lot of comedians that have taken the year and a half off, which I totally understand. But I don't know. I got too much ADHD, and I still did at least one live show a week, and I was writing for a magazine, which is still, pumping out comedy, if you will. So I kept it on the burners for sure the entire time.
Hell yeah.
But I'm also high right now, so I don't really remember the initial question you asked.
Well, that's a good segue, Ian, because we got someone asking you a question here on the chat. Right now, what's your strain of choice?
Ooh. Actually, I'll give a shout out right now. Right now, so shout out my homies over at Shamrock Farms in Westbrook. They dropped off an O. They dropped off an O a few days ago, and I've already smoked half of this shit. They dropped off an O of Banana OG. So loving the Banana OG right now. Trying to think, what are some strains that I've been, I don't know, like, so I write all the strain reviews for the Cannabis Chronicle. So I constantly trying new weed. And I feel like for me personally, it's not even what strain's my favorite. It's more of like, I just like top shelf fucking, it's like beers, you know what I mean? Like I like top shelf beers, and like I think I like the different flavors for the different effects, for the different, experiences, for the whatever the fuck it is. Like I think weed is very much like a beer, if you will. And I think at a certain point when you start really enjoying it, I think I just enjoy good fucking strains of weed, But yeah, I'll say Banana OG right now. Banana OG is kind of my current favorite, but it's also because Shamrock Farms. Whoa. For me,
you are a connoisseur, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm an addict. That's luckily.
So you can be addicted
if this
to
was
weed.
crack cocaine, I'd be fucking the president's son. Okay, so.
Hey, that's Hunter. Don't talk about Hunter like that. I'll come up there and I'll bring you behind the shed and I'll give you a wedgie and then I'll lick it. Come on, man.
Well, that's one thing. Like, I feel like you guys know. Like, I know we can talk about like professional shit, but now I've smoked almost the entire joint. I've had a beer. Like, I'm ready to talk about goddamn Bohemian Grove. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get into the shit.
Yeah.
What are some current conspiracy theories? Maybe not even political conspiracy theories that you're fucking with right now. How do you feel about all this alien shit going down right now with the government?
I just read an article about that earlier, and my take on it is that if the government they're releasing videos and they have spokespeople from the government talking about it, there's a specific reason and a deliberate reason for that. And I think that they want to continue to weaponize space. I think they want to continue surveillance. They always need money for that. They're okay scaring the public or making the public afraid of something. So they'll use UFO phenomena. They'll rebrand it. I think they call it UAPs now, unidentified aerial or
pussy.
Aerial pussy. But
it's just for the Moon Army. That's what they're trying to drum up money for the Moon Army with the whole UFOs.
It could. I mean, a lot of the people that you see on like 60 Minutes or mainstream shit, they are currently in government, or they were in government or military. So there's an agenda. That's not to say that some of the stuff that they've put out there, they've seen, they really cannot identify. So is it the Chinese? Is it the Russians? Or is it something else? Obviously, I don't know, but It's a lot of it's kind of suspect in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, do either of you believe in aliens and UFOs?
I think it's possible. I think there's stuff beyond our comprehension that we might not even be able to comprehend.
But have you seen any footage that you were like, oh shit, like that might be a UFO?
Well, I've definitely dabbled with David Icke. Are you familiar with him, the lizard man?
I mean, I'm half lizard myself, bro. I know David. Yeah, absolutely, he's amazing. And actually, wasn't he like a fucking like a soccer player for a very long time?
Yep, David was a professional footballer in England for a time. Then he got a really bad injury, and that put a pin in his career. So he became a broadcaster for BBC for sports. He was like a huge mainstream professional broadcaster. He was the spokesman for the Green Party over there. Like he had a serious mainstream career going. And then just one day in like the early 90s, man, he went full turquoise. You know, he was like, I had someone visit me. I had visions and all the, I don't know, Mike, you do David Icke pretty well.
I was down in Chile with a guru, a shaman of sorts, and I had a vision come through me. And it was that told me I was the son of God. You're going to say some things. You're going to research some stuff. People are going to laugh at you, but eventually they're going to want to have pints with you. And that is exactly what's happened to David Icke the last 30 years, man. No shit. Like he was part of a huge freedom protest in England last week. There were police coming up to him, mothers, young people, old people, shaking his hand, crying, wanting to get photos with him. Fucking incredible, man. You know,
I love that, dude. So I've gone into the whole David. I've gone into Project Camelot. You guys ever watch Project Camelot videos? You know what I'm talking about?
It sounds familiar.
So if you look up Project Camelot on YouTube, it's I think it was initially a couple, and now it's just the woman. But they interview different people that were like soldiers on Mars and fucking fucking psychics that can tell you what Atlantis really was. Like it's like those kind of videos. And I've gone down that rabbit hole, and I feel like conspiracies for me have started off like any good like dare drug story where it's like he took a hit with his friend and now he's sucking dick for crack. That's what I feel like I am doing with my conspiracies right now. Like I'm just like in a fucking like universal Mars soldier. You know what I mean?
Just a glory hole of conspiracies.
Yeah. Dude, I'm in dark spot right now.
MK Ultra, Mockingbird, Project Artichoke, Operation Northwoods, Operation Gladio, bro, Infowars.com.
But I know you guys are very political, so you must have like a litany of fucking, political conspiracy theories and Epstein, theories and all that kind of shit. But like anything like weird, are you guys too analytical for like ghosts and fucking like maybe pterodactyls still are around in China and like all that kind of shit?
So I've had plenty of people who I know are not batshit who have told me they've seen ghosts and they've had these experiences where they've seen an entity or felt something in a room and they're not bullshitting, they're not crazy. So I don't want to like just brush them aside and say, oh, you're full of it, you're pulling my leg. I would like to believe that like people are around after they die or this and that. So I'm not, against believing it or accepting it or denying it. Obviously the meme is, oh, I need evidence, I need to see it, but I'd be pretty fucking horrified if I saw a ghost, to be honest with you. I don't know that I'd want to see that shit.
Have you guys ever had a ghost experience or a UFO experience or anything like that?
No, not me personally. No,
really?
I experienced people in my life that I was close to that have passed basically in dreams that are vivid. But I wouldn't call that like a ghost thing. I would just call it a very intense or realistic, emotional kind of dream. But I've never seen anything that's led me to think that.
And it's funny. I was just thinking like I've had all four. I've had the UFO experience. I've had the ghost experience, I've had the cryptid experience, and I've had the religious experience as well. I've had all four of those things. They're all actually monumental aspects of my life. But they're also like shrouded in like maybe I was too drunk that day. You know what I mean? Like it's very funny that you have these very important things in your life that are centered around like, yeah, maybe it was sun and weed and not actually Bigfoot that, was hanging out in the woods.
Well, if it was in Maine, if it all happened in Maine, none of it can be written off because that's where the biggest ghoul creator of all time, Stephen King, resides. Right.
Well, me and 3 other comedians coming back from Madawaska saw a Wendigo in the middle of the road, and all 4 of us will tell you the exact same story. It was fucking insane.
That's the inspiration for Pet Sematary. If you actually look at the source material, yep, the Wendigo, the mythical creature in the woods that possesses the dead and turns them evil. And actually, the Pet Sematary remake goes more into that mythology than the original does. But talk about being, under the ocean. There's stuff that we haven't discovered that we may never discover out in the woods. I mean, who really knows? I mean, there's.
Yeah, and with David Icke, so David Icke, talks about lizard people and reptilians, and I kind of think of it along the lines of just people who are just cold-blooded and totally devoid of humanity and empathy. So people who are like the war profiteers and make money off human suffering on a large mass scale. To me, those people are reptilians. They're just not able to understand or think deeply about the thought of their actions and the policies they create, and then these weapons of war that they make, and then they send young kids 8,000 miles away to play with them out in the desert and just destroy human life at mass scale. So to me, like, I think about someone like Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney, like they're definitely like lizard people, and
they got lizard brain. Yeah,
they got lizard brain, and they're profit driven, they're greedy. And they just don't care about the wake of destruction that's been left after what they've done. So when David Icke talks about it in that sense, I'm with him on that. Now, I don't know that I'm with him on literal fucking shape-shifting reptiles, giant lizards. But when I fucking see someone like Henry Kissinger living to be almost 100 years old, you could then start kind of changing my mind that there are lizards.
Yeah.
Evil never dies.
The other question too is: have you guys ever experienced? And I knew you don't want to talk about this on your podcast. Have you guys ever experimented with psychedelics?
Yeah. I've psilocybin. I've done mushrooms a few times, and what an experience! I mean, it's helped
psilocybin together.
Yeah.
That's got to be crazy. Is that crazy as fuck as twins?
Yeah.
It's
did you have like psychic shit or like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like living as a twin must be like a psychedelic experience at all times. You know what I mean? And then to add psychedelics on top of that, there's got to be a whole different aspect.
Yeah, well, we already have our own language together as it is. So things, a bunch of experiences. What's that?
Like a real own, like your own language for real, like in the movie Nell.
Well, it can exist with a head nod or a certain look, or if we both hear the same thing from someone or from a TV show or whatever, we will sometimes have the same response.
So is it instinctual language?
I mean, sometimes. I mean, it's womb to tomb. It's a womb to tomb thing, man.
The same things. So we would think deeply when you're doing the mushrooms. You obviously think deeply about things, and because we've had the same experiences, a lot of the same experiences for almost 35 years, it's amazing when you can. You're connected on it anyways when you're not on psychedelics, but then you throw psychedelics into the mix, it elevates it up like 110%, and it's pretty cool experience. Pretty cool.
And really, for me, Ian, we've had some pretty tragic losses in our family the last 5 years. And rather than get on, thank you. And I'll be honest, rather than get on any kind of prescription drugs or anything like that, psilocybin has helped me deal with my grief more than anything. And that's just that. After you do it, you just feel a lot better. You feel lighter. You're facing pretty much everything head on, and and it's not something that's gonna kill you or potentially get you addicted. So, I think it's a deliberate thing for me. It's not. I actually haven't done it in a couple of years, probably, to be honest. And my main source of medication is basically just cold beer lately on the weekends. Yeah. So, but I think I'm glad that the discussion on psychedelics, specifically psilocybin, has become more open in our country. I mean, they've known about this shit, for years, since they first, quote unquote, accidentally discovered it. And they know that it's helping people with trauma. It helps veterans with trauma coming back from the wars or suffering amputation.
Absolutely.
It helps people with grief, depression. It helps people who are dying of cancer or any kind of end of life, disease, cope with that. There's actually scientific studies that are showing that. So I think that's a very positive thing.
Well, it's funny. A lot of my friends, because Maine is a hub for legalized marijuana. There, the medical marijuana program has been here for 2 decades at this point. It's since I think 1998, 1999 is when the medical program came in. There's a lot of people that started the medical program. They're now getting into, psilocybin. They're trying to legalize psilocybin and microdosing, because microdosing is a huge thing as far as I guess progressing in not recreational drugs, but drugs that the way that marijuana can be helpful. I think psilocybin can be helpful as well, is what I'm trying to say, I suppose.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think, especially on a microdose level, I've got a buddy that lost his wife, and he's been dealing with his grief with microdosing through psilocybin. And with that said, he's able to not only perform all his tasks, but he's able to perform all of his tasks without that giant cloud above him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the stigma should be taken away from it. It should be, I think in the coming years, it will be at least looked at for medical, like the same way marijuana has gone. And I'm sure you've been very, public and vocal about your medical issues with graves and whatnot. Do you feel like using, marijuana helps you deal with that on a daily basis?
I'll be honest, no, probably not. I should probably be cutting back on my marijuana as far as graves, only because my ocular disease is progressed through smoking. It's really bad if I smoke cigarettes and shit like that, but it's also not good if I smoke pot. So the reason that I do have the eye disease that I do is because I'm a fucking smoker. There's a lot of people with Graves' disease that don't have the eye problem. With that said, the eye problem has become comedic foil for me, and it's just become part of the fucking act. So I don't know if I would even go back and not smoke a bunch of pot and get the eye disease, but there's also one of those things where I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a giant scar across mine. I just, I had a bunch of knives in my throat 2 months ago. I don't know if smoking is the great. With that said, my relationship with smoking, I think, is changing. My relationship with cannabis is not, because I'm now finding a new love with edibles. And you know what I mean? I absolutely love edibles. So I think cannabis is here to stay. I think cannabis helps me in a general sense. But I think the actual act of smoking has been, that's, I guess, you know what I mean? That's why there's a weird review, is maybe I should not have physically smoked as much as I did.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true, man. It's that classic saying, pick your poison, and it's edibles are definitely popular, and there's an emerging market for that. So, and maybe less impact on, certainly on your body or your lungs or, whatnot.
Are either of you into cannabis?
I'm not personally, no.
So it's funny. So now that it's becoming pretty much legal everywhere, and we're moving towards federal legalization, not fast enough for my taste. I don't really enjoy marijuana anymore, man. It's crazy. I know some people I've talked to, and I had my days, but it usually goes hand in hand with drinking. So if I'm drinking pretty seriously, and there's some around, I'll definitely be into doing it. But I'm actually on a dry spell right now. I've taken almost 3 months off from booze. And the only substance I've used is caffeine and sugar here and there, but it's been good. So I haven't really felt a desire to do it, but I think it'd be a matter of getting the right kind of weed, because I kind of got freaked out the last few times I did it. Yeah. So I would need a guru to kind of find me the right calming strain and stuff to use.
You need a 1-to-1 ratio, which is same ratio of CBD as THC, low THC, high CBD. And something that would be an indica dominant strain, and you'd be fine. But with that said, too, is it's funny. I have a lot of. I think I was more into pushing marijuana when I was like in my 20s. Like, dude, you gotta smoke. You don't smoke weed, bro. You gotta smoke weed. I think at this point now, it's like, oh, it's probably smart if you don't. No, you shouldn't be smoking anything. Good for you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You get older.
No, I mean, with all the substances that are out there, I mean, we all know this. This is beating a dead horse, man. Marijuana is pretty damn safe, and if you're smart about it, and are in control of your settings and where you are, it's not a big deal. It's a fucking plant. It's been here since the beginning of time, and it probably outlived humans.
Yeah. Yeah. So, who do you guys think actually killed Epstein?
Well, I think they could have had the local mafia or local muscle basically sub it out and contract. If they had someone, they had a prisoner who was already in there, maybe serving a few life sentences.
Like JFK, they hired the mafia.
Yeah, I mean that would have been probably who the intermediary was, but ultimately, I mean, dude, the Clintons, the Trumps, there's a lot of powerful people that were probably breathing a sigh of relief when he died. So, there's a long list of suspects, and there's some people who say they think it was connected to the Clintons, and then there's people who say, well, Trump was president, so he's the one who captured him, and he had his attorney General Barr kind of run cover up on the whole thing, because it was actually Barr's father who gave Epstein his job at the Dalton School back in the 70s in the first place. So,
oh no shit.
Oh yeah, but and Barr was
all so incestuous. You know what I mean? It's all fucking crazy. It's fucking nuts.
It is, man. And Barr worked for George Bush Sr. Barr worked in the CIA. His father worked in the precursor of the CIA. So Trump said he went in there to drain the swamp. He sure filled it up with a lot of swamp things.
Yeah, it was different swamp water. Yeah.
I mean, I think I think his name is Dr. Baden showed that the bones that were broken in Epstein's neck almost never occur in a hanging suicide. Like there was 3 of them that were broken. Sometimes if 2 were broken, it might be from a hanging, but it's usually from strangulation. So I have no doubt that he was actually murdered. But who actually did it? It's still to be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's all about access and who had access there to the prison. It's could be subbed out to the gangs that are in prison, because they certainly have influence and power and suction. We had a great guest on the show, former CIA officer John Kiriakou, a couple months ago, and he went to federal prison for 20 months for blowing the whistle on waterboarding and torture. So, yeah, he's in there with the fucking Aryan Brotherhood, the Latin Kings, the Yakuza, the fucking Italian. Yeah, so he buddied up and got tight with the Italian mobsters. He's a Greek dude, so they kind of had some camaraderie there, and used the CIA training and skills to survive prison and come out. I think physically unscathed, but certainly that'll do a number on you mentally to be in a cage for 20 months away from home. Yeah. But that's how it works. An order can come down, man, from whoever. I mean, Whitey Bulger got fucking punked, almost 90 years old, in the prison, and he got his, man. Yeah.
Somebody made sure that both of those cameras weren't working at Epstein's cell too. I mean, you're talking about next to El Chapo, who was also at that same facility, the most recognized and important prisoner in America at that time. And you're going to tell me the guards fell asleep? They weren't checking on him and both cameras malfunctioned?
Yeah.
And the guards, the 2 guards that they have out there, I think those are the fall guys. It's a guy and a girl. Lower level employees of the prison, and they're using them as the fall people. And the media just goes along with it, and it's still out there as a story, but you don't hear about it as much as you did. They definitely have.
And that's exactly it. It's funny. The circumstances are that out of like a fucking like Ocean's 11, like shitty Hollywood action movie where it's like, all right, the guards are asleep and the cameras are down. You know what I mean? Like it's that's not how real life fucking is. You know what I mean? But like, hey, it happened in Ocean 11. Must have happened in that fucking facility for you. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's almost comical. Yeah, and one of his cellmates was a guy who was in there for 4 homicides. He was a New York City police detective. He was jacked, and he killed 4 people in a cocaine deal gone bad. And this was Epstein's cellmate. So. That guy's kind of interesting to look into. So there's all kinds of possibilities, but they made sure that he did make it out alive. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to definitely go deep into a lot of the Epstein stuff at our live show that we're doing on Friday, July 9th at Nova Arts Center in Keene on Emerald Street. And you can get tickets, novaarts.org/live events/Jackman Radio Live. I'll put a link in the thing, Mike.
And Ian, what do you got coming up for big shows, man? You got a couple of, obviously we talked about hosting Barnstock, but do you got any anything at Chunky's or
Aura? So New England's Funniest at Aura all summer long, all Thursdays. Got some Maine Comedy All-Star dates. I think August 19th, we're also at Aura for Maine Comedy All-Stars, which is me, Paul Hunt, James Burge, all stand-up comedy. And then Welcome to Maine. Just check out Welcome to Maine. That would be the biggest one. Just check us out. Like and follow on Facebook. We're trying to grow it through our Facebook. I think out of all of the platforms, we do best on Facebook because it's our audience is such a local niche thing that it's harder to do that on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to make it to one of your Manchester or Nashua shows. I'm going to keep an eye out on that. I tried to make it to a recent Manchester one. It didn't work out, but we'll definitely have to link up in person here soon, man. But it's been a pleasure having you on, Ian. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on. I feel like I just yammered, so I apologize. Edit anything you need to edit out. I'm sure it was bad. I don't think I said anything that will get me canceled, but
No, man. I mean, that's why Mike and I love doing this. I mean, my style is I like my guests to talk. I mean, I'm always talking on my podcast and I'm yammering on. So when we have guests on, I want to hear what they have to say. So I appreciate, you taking the time and sharing everything with us, Ian. It's great to do this. This is an awesome medium and it needs to happen more in my view.
Yeah. Again, I want to do it live. I would love to hang out in the actual studio. I know you guys have a Blood for Blood poster. That's one of my favorite bands of all time. Yeah. I didn't talk about that with you guys either. Quickly, whose fucking Blood for Blood poster is that?
So that's a shout to our third mic and our producer extraordinaire, Ricky Gray, who moved back from Texas with his wife. He was helping us with the podcast remotely from Texas, moved back, bought a beautiful house, and built a studio in his basement. And he's a drummer and a sound engineer, and Blood for Blood is a band that he loves. He's got all kinds of cool flags around in the studio. We'll have to share more pictures of them. But
that's Franklin Pierce grad, too.
Yep.
No shit. Dude, Blood for Blood was my favorite band for a very, very long time. If you want to get weird Epstein-type shit, one of the singers went to jail for quite a while for some weird stuff. But
Murder for Hire?
No, so the main singer-songwriter is White Trash Rob, and he's got like a heroin problem. That's his whole deal. He's a heroin junkie. But the other guy, Buddha, who was just kind of like the backing guy who sang in half the songs, he went to jail for I think touching like a teenage girl or some weird shit like that. So yeah, no
Epstein stuff.
Yeah, White Trash Rob has nothing to do with that guy and still kind of carries on. White Trash Rob has his own podcast called The Nodcast, where he talks about, I think, coming through recovery type shit. But I love that. I love that band. It's such a niche band. So every time I see them, like, whose fucking poster? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to take credit for it now. I forget what I said about Ricky. It's my favorite band. Ricky just likes the Beatles and the Moody Blues.
Yeah, right. That's a likely
true. Yeah. All right.
All right, well, everybody, thank you very much. That was our live stream for today for Jackman Radio. You can find us on Spotify and Podbean, and, of course, like us on Facebook, and we will have more to come.
All right. Rock and roll. See you guys. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.